Hello, and thank you for joining us. My name is Bradley Butler, and I am the Executive Director and Curator at Main Street Arts in Clifton Springs, New York. Tonight's event is an artist talk and studio tour with Adewole and Delvin Goode. This artist talk is the last in a series of online events in conjunction with our exhibition, The Cup the Mug. These two artists are included in this year's exhibition, which is an online invitational. This year's show includes over 120 cups and mugs by 25 artists from 17 states and runs through Saturday, December 2nd. So I am going to share with you images of each of these artists' work as I tell you a little bit about them before we bring them on to talk about themselves and what they do in the studio. So April Adewole began her career in psychology with a degree from University of California, Dominguez Hills, working as a counselor and researcher. While completing prerequisites for a transition into healthcare, April became consumed by clay. For the last 5 years, she has been creating pottery and ceramic art in her private studio, The Clay Kitchen, which is part of her retail space, Adewole Arts. And Delvin Goode was born in 1978 in Riverside, California, and attended Florida State University. He learned from his family that you must maintain a good sense of humor, and that was reinforced once he became a U.S. Army soldier in 2002, where he's used art throughout his career to raise morale for soldiers. Goode received an MFA in 2021 from Fort Hays State University, and currently he executes a delicate dance between life as a soldier and the ever-present desires of an aspiring artist. If each of you would like to tell us a little bit more about yourselves, things that I did not read, maybe as they pertain to your studio practice. April, let's start with you.
Hi. I think that kind of said it all. My studio practice is kind of interesting. I work in the same space that I sell out of, which means my best days are, of course, days that the market is closed. Those are the most productive ones for me. I guess I'll give you guys kind of a little kind of glance around at what's going on behind me. So I call it the clay kitchen, and it looks very much like a little classical kitchen. I've got a little refrigerator and a stove and a sink over there. Got some slabs kind of working. My refrigerator I use as a damp box, and my stove, I kind of dry some stuff out there, especially like as the winter months come. But right now I'm on my other side, and this is my retail space. So behind me is all my work, pottery available for sale because I'm crazy and I can't stop making it. Yeah. And then right behind me, you see, there's my space where I actually make. So people get to walk through on the weekends. We're open Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And you can see me either over there making, or I'll be doing a class or something like that. So I have a very open practice right now.
Very cool. And I think we'll hear a little bit from Delvin, and then maybe we can delve into delve was the wrong word to use after I said
no,
get into.
I'm sure he appreciated. He was like, you said his name twice.
We'll get into
it. Yeah,
some more of your studio space. So Delvin, how about a little bit more about you?
Yeah, man. So funny enough, since I sent you that bio, I've retired from the Army. So that's cool. Whoop, whoop. 21 years down in a couple of days and change. So now I'm no longer, doing that delicate balance between soldier and artist. But I actually now work full time for Speedball Art. So that's been pretty exciting and pretty cool. But yeah, my work has always been about raising morale, putting smiles on people's faces, just trying to be funny the most I can. I just it's just always inspired me, especially my background as a graphic designer from my undergrad. Always use a lot of humor, and like I said, it comes from my family upbringing. Just always just having fun throughout the house. Like don't come visit the Good family if you're not ready to laugh. You know, that's how we get through the good times and the bad times. And I think it's you know, definitely like I said, joining the military and still being able to do all sorts of types of commissioned art, um, everything from like graphic design, woodworking, photography, painting, uh, and then you know ended up doing the ceramic thing, which was pretty wild. I didn't think that it would end up that way. I couldn't imagine it would end up that way, but I love it, and especially that's kind of like encompassed uh, the career that I have going forward after serving in the military. So it's been pretty cool. Um, so you know we can do the studio tour real quick. You know it's pretty wild. I don't have as cool a setup as April. April's setup is pretty awesome. Uh, we're in full out, you know, Christmas mode, and I got a couple of things, you know, going on for speedball as well. But let's see if I can get the whole tour going. All right, we'll just start here. There's the old kilns. If I would like to, you know, just fire my stuff. This is pretty much the clay boss section. So I got 3 wheels set up. I actually, John R. Hamilton III, who was on the first one of this series, who's in this show, actually was here last week. So we had the wheels rolling, trying out some cool new clays, some blue porcelain, some black porcelain, because I told him it was kicking my butt. So he had to come and verify that it was indeed kicking his butt too. So we had a lot of fun with that. So, and I always keep my Giffen grip on this wheel. This one is actually a creative industry wheel, like before Speedball actually took it over. So that's pretty cool. Let's see. As you go on, we got a couple of bisque pieces, ongoing projects, molds. For those who are following Speedball, we got the new mid-fire line we just launched. So doing a lot of testing, a lot of fun with that lately. And I'll show you in a second what I'm working on with that. And then of course I got to have the underglaze section. You know, we won't focus on some of those other brands we got.
It's kind of hard to see them anyway. You got them kind of low, my friend.
Well, you know, I had to put them in priority of usage. So we actually this is the woodworking side. You know, this is in the garage, so we jam on a lot of woodworking in the studio. That's kind of like what my wife and I have done for years. So she's still carrying that tradition on and doing amazing projects with that. She's knee deep in the holiday season. We'll go check out the other side of the studio on the inside of where we work here in a second. See, I got the Artista set up. Gonna do me some glazing tonight. And I like to use that just for ease of use. And it's also my travel buddy when I do workshops. And then, yeah, so we're working on this current project. You'll see this is for the mid-fire launch. I'm going to glaze these up tonight already. Got the underglaze on them earlier, so excited to get that rolling. And then, yeah, let's do a quick sprint to the inside studio. I'll let you check out my shoe game as we go. So yeah, like I said, we're in full holiday mode. This is the inside studio. So as you can see, when you get a lot of my work, there's a lot of like accessories and cool things that kind of come with it. Again, coming from my graphic design background, and just like I said, bringing as much fun as I can to the pieces. So this is a vinyl cutter that we use. That I use to do all my stencil work. We got the Glowforge laser engraver. This thing is cooling off. Wife has been on that all day. We got, you know, this is just the whole section. When I used to make the boxes, still got some boxes up there. The wood, we got you know, we're full speedball out. We got the screen printing section down here. And then, like I said, this is my wife's work. She's got a bunch of holiday orders that she's working on right now. Then, you know, our little shipping department. So we're in full holiday season right now. Just rolling through everything.
Yeah, it's always so cool to see how people, you know, divvy up the different things that they do. And it seems like, I mean, just based on the work that we've seen from this show, you know, various parts to kind of what people get when they, buy your work. How did you get into, that style of working with all the kind of little features and things you can change on and off of the cups?
So let me see. A lot of that started just from doing like years and years of commission artwork while I was in the military. So it's just a lot of like, we were really huge into Pinterest at one time. So people would find things on Pinterest, and then, my wife and I would make it. We used to teach classes on it. And so, it kind of started there. And then per what she was doing with making all her woodworking projects, she needed a laser engraver to continue on. We were outsourcing everything that was laser engraved, and then about 4 years ago, the person we were outsourcing that stuff from, just called it quits out of the blue during the holiday season. And my wife, I think she had about 70 orders that she needed a laser engraver for. So we ended up buying a laser engraver. And it's just like anything else in the studio, regardless if it's for her side or my side. It was like, well, if we're buying a laser engraver, like, I'm gonna figure out how to use that for ceramics. And so that's how that kind of folded in. So I'm already enjoyed making extra things and just adding those little pops of like surprise to my work. And then with the laser engraver, it just opened up that much more possibilities, especially like with the boxes. I had a lot of fun creating boxes. I used to make a box for every mug. So now that's kind of relegated to like specialty projects and stuff. And so that's really how that came about. It's just more ways to do things, and especially as she continues to do commission work and other projects. Like I piggyback off of that, especially if I get to help her with that project. I'm always thinking, how can I bring this back into ceramics, some form of fashion? So that's pretty much how all that wraps into what I do.
And it's got to be hard to kind of rein in, what, like, if there's all these possibilities, all these different, things you can do, but there's really only a certain amount of time you can devote to certain things. It's got to be hard to kind of figure out what's the right thing to do for what project, right?
Yeah, that's why the boxes became like a specialty item, because I was like, it's just too much to make a box now for every single piece, too much time. But how can I still do that same kind of wow factor and pop? So like, the keychains and all kinds of, or like the current work I have in this show, the plates, the little plates that you can switch out that magnetize to the mug and all that fun stuff.
Very, very cool. And April, your space seems so unique. How did you decide that that's the kind of space that you wanted, and like where are you? Are you near other artist studios right now? Or are you kind of in a standalone place? Like, tell us more about that.
So I'm actually in the middle of a craft mall. I came into this space just in a small shop, like trying to sell my work. It was just kind of like during the slow times when I realized like I kind of need something to do over here. I'm going a little crazy. So first I brought in a table, which was really fun. I was doing some hand building, and then some people were like, "Oh, I want to hand build too." So I started kind of doing hand building classes. And then a space across from me opened up, and I was like, that looks really nice. It would look really good with a wheel in there. And so I was able to get a wheel over on this side, and now I have the four wheels over here. So I do classes in this space too. Yeah, it's just kind of something that evolved. My maker's mark after my signature is based on a symbol that means kitchen, and a lot of the way I work in the studio is like based on like sitting around my great grandmother's kitchen, as a kid. From like little things like picking up like newspapers and magazines of things that I have absolutely no interest in, and still being able to find some sort of interest in them because I wasn't supposed to be listening to grown folks' conversations. So like all my cups and my plates and stuff, like I try to add some little interest in them to where you could sit a whole meal and you could stare at your ware and like see little designs and weirdness and be like, oh, I didn't notice that in there before. Um, but also like the different things that I make, I make quilts and all this. So like the layers that go into it also comes from, my great grandmother and sitting around her. So when I decided to make the actual space, I got a lot of the things off of OfferUp. during COVID. So it was really fun way to kind of like get out and still interact with people and kind of meet community and that kind of thing. But I was just gathering things for a studio, and it was like, okay, am I gonna go out and spend all this stuff on nice new things and I'm gonna turn the crap with my clay all over it? Or is there a way I can find a bunch of old crap and it be cool? So I just kind of started like, okay, let's go with the kitchen thing. And when I just found things, I was like, I can make that work as this, or that could be that. And so it just kind of really evolved from loose connections. And it's one of my favorite places to be in the world. And I spend way too much time.
That's great. And I think I mean, it makes her a really unique, I don't know, a unique focus for the studio.
Oh yeah, it is definitely interesting, unique. Like a lot of people stop, as they're walking by, and the first thing, especially if I have slabs out on the table, they're not thinking clay. Like they see the kitchen and they automatically are like, "Ooh, are you making fudge? Are you making cookies?" And I'd be like, these would be the most unsanitary things of fudge and cookies ever. Like, do you see? Like you're breathing all over it, kind of a thing. But it gets people to stop and gets them interested. And then, I get to hear about people and their pottery. A lot of times I get really interesting pottery stories from people of all ages, and they keep the clay. Like people have pottery pieces that they made when they were in school, and they're talking about me how their parents have it and their parents are in their 90s and stuff, and it's something people hold on to. It makes a connection with people, and it's lasting.
And you both have interesting. I mean, I think based on what I gathered from your bio, April, that you began in psychology, but then kind of once you found clay, went right to clay. And then Delvin kind of splitting time between two worlds, being a soldier and being an artist. So I don't know, can either of you have any interesting, I don't know, observations or thoughts on what that's like, having like two very different worlds either coming together or a transition from one to the other? Anything interesting to share there?
Well, honestly, mine was magical because it actually came together full circle. So I was doing my work in psychology and I had my daughter. And when I did, I noticed like my social battery did not have enough for out in the world and coming home. So I was like, I got to do something a little more low key. And that's when I went back to school to try to do something else. But I ended up getting plucked out of school to do psychology again, but to do it with clay. So the place that I ended up working for almost, I think it's about 7 or 8 years, I did pottery classes at a mental health community center. So I
Nice.
was involved with, counselors and, homeless, like the whole world of mental health and clients, and didn't have to really do the same emotional labor. So it was beautiful for me. Like I got to play in clay, and it was good. Like it was helpful, and it was really interesting when I did my first pottery class, after like all the COVID restrictions kind of released, and seeing that same effect that clay would have on patients or clients, on just regular people who was this their first time, interacting in a public environment and space where they felt safe. And it was just kind of like that release at the end of it of all the madness, through their hands and into the clay. And it's beautiful. Like it's always a beautiful thing what happens with clay, even when it's garbage, it's some kind of beautiful.
And did you kind of get in? I mean, that was truly your introduction to it. I mean, did you kind of learn all the skills as you were, using that as a therapy with people, or?
Pretty much. So I got a few classes while I was doing, in school, but I was at a community college taking prerequisites to go off, for MEPN program. So I never got big, you know what I mean? Like I never did all of the pottery things. I think one of the best things that happened to me is that my ceramics teacher at one point had me draw a picture of a pot that I was trying to trim. And while he was looking at it, he was like, hold on, is that what you think your pot looks like? And, he made me take a drawing class, which was like the most kind of like artsy kind of a class that I took, but it was brilliant, you know, in conjunction with, I mean, with working along with the clay, because I finally like started to see things. And so other than that, like everything has just been things that I've kind of worked on, thrown together, kind of mad scientist in the pottery studio over some years.
Yeah, it is interesting to think about how, you know, what you think and what you see can be different. Even though it's like
So different.
you know what it is that you're looking at, but you know, it's like hard to say it in another language, you know, like drawing is it's harder. It's easy to say, no, this is what I'm doing with my hands, you know, but I can't do it with my hands in the same way with drawing, you know. So
Right. Yeah.
um cool. And Delvin, can you tell us a little bit about, you know, that balance for you in those two seemingly very different ways of life, right?
Yeah, I mean, my clay journey didn't start as humble. I'll admit. I was mine started back in my undergrad. You know, I went to Florida State University, and wasn't necessarily you know, I graduated with some good marks, but I wasn't necessarily focused on academia back then as a primary. And so as I was a graphic design major, and as I, you know, did all the graphic design classes that I needed, you know, for the degree and had to take electives, I wanted to go to an elective in art that had the highest concentration of ladies. And so somebody suggested to me uh, the the ceramics wheel throwing, and because it was, and a lot of it was because of where it was placed on the campus at the time. It was strategically in between, in the middle of all the sororities on campus. So I was like, all right, yep, let's go. I'll do that. It should be a lot of fun. And it was actually the first art form I ever tried that completely like dominated me, kicked my butt. Like I was absolutely the worst student by far, like to the point where the instructor actually gave up on me. He was like, "Clearly, you're here for the wrong reason. You're not here for the clay." And and it took one of the young ladies in the course was absolutely amazing, and it was just me and her in the studio one day, and she threw. And this girl was like all of maybe 5'1", and she took about 15 pounds on that wheel and threw the most amazing vase with the utmost control. And I was just like, okay, I got to step this. I was extremely type A back then. So I was like, okay,
Back
I can't
then.
be the worst. I can't be the worst in the class. Like, and I got to beat you kind of stuff. But she was the motivation, and she helped me out tremendously, getting on the level, at least as an okay potter. Um, and by the end of that first semester, they actually asked me to teach it. Um, which was cool in one sense because they recognize like you obviously don't have a problem talking to people, uh, and you've learned the basics, so you can teach like a non-accredited class. But teaching is when I actually started falling in love with it, because then it was like I get to actually help other people make things. And like I said back then, I was like I can make like a beer mug or a goblet and like take it to the football games and stuff. Like it was pretty awesome. So I was like, this is a pretty cool craft. Um, but also being cocky back then, I was like, all right, well, clearly if I'm teaching it, this is another art form that I've mastered. So, yep, I'll go back to doing like painting, pottery, you know, no, not pottery, but painting, photography, all that other stuff. So fast forward years later, I'm in the military now, a lot more mature, way more mature. And the military, the Army said, hey, you need to get a master's if you want to keep going in your career. We don't care what it is, just get a master's. Um, and so I reflected back on that time as an undergrad student of, you know, not really taking pottery as serious as I should have, and really taking the craft where I could. Um, and luck would have it, you know, I found Fort Hays State University that allowed me to do the master's in ceramics without being present at the university and still moving like every 1 to 2 years while I was in the program. So that's what brought me back into ceramics, actually having the right mindset. And then I actually did visit the my peers in the program my first semester. And when I saw the level of ceramics that they were pushing out, it was a great motivation for me to be like, okay, you got a long way to go in this craft. Um, and you know, so it was great. It was great. And it kind of towards the end of that is when I got started getting sponsored by Speedball, and that was you know a huge blessing, for what everything that was going on. And I knew I was coming towards retirement. Like they picked me up right before COVID, so beginning of 2020 is when they started sponsoring me and just working with different people on the team and just, increasing my relationship with them. And then I was like, hey, when I retire, it'd be pretty awesome to come and work for you guys if it'll work out. And it did work out. so that was it. And it was just, so for me, it was kind of, started off not so great, but then falling in love with it. And then, the beauty of the job now is as I travel across the country and visit different studios and artists and stuff, I get to still, help artists across the world. I get to teach whenever I'm in other people's studios. They're all about like, hey, teach something, do something. So that's been a blast. And just, like I said, just getting to know artists like April and the rest of our little crazy crew whenever we hit up shows and stuff across the country. So it's been a blast. So yeah.
It has.
Yeah, I think it's really cool, the way that, I think living a life as a creative person, it brings you into a lot of different areas, and you get to know a lot of different people. And I think it's so cool the way that functions, whether it's people coming into your space, April, or Delvin, you going to different studios. It's just like, a really cool excuse to be able to meet people and, hang out with people who have a similar passion or interest. So yeah, and I can tell, from each of you that you have, that comes out, that passion. So very cool. Well, it's been really great, learning more about you and your work and seeing a little bit of your studios. And I just want to remind everyone that that these two artists, along with the other 23 artists in the show, have work available at mainstreetartscs.org. The show runs through this Saturday, December 2nd. So that's all you have. And, you got to check it out. So mainstreetartscs.org, and you can learn more about the other artists in the show as well, view their work, buy it, everyone would appreciate that. So I would just like to, again, thank both of you for being in the show and for talking with us tonight, and enjoy the holiday making and all that goes into it.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Brad.
This was a blast.
Yeah, this was awesome. It was a great show.
Well, thank you both for being in it.